Two things I love in this world: video games and cheese. And with Outer Worlds 2 being right around the corner, it's the perfect opportunity to make the horrible decision of attempting to combine the two.
Kill me.
Now, I have not yet had time to actually play the game, but I did play the first one, and I did see this rad concept art, so let's make that. Seeing as cheese is a somewhat tricky sculpting medium, let's start with some foil instead. I also added this sticky out bit to either hold or attach the head to something for some yet to be determined reason. After using every trick in the book to make this thing somewhat spherical, it luckily turns out that Moon Guy's eye sockets are exactly one ball stylus in diameter. I've baked a smaller, slightly spherical ball off camera to split in twain for use as eyeballs. Our mascot friend leads a busy life consisting of more existential horrors than sleep hours, so in lieu of eyelids, he sports a constant set of rings around his eyes, which in turn are so jammed open it looks like he just snorted Drano laced with shards of glass.
Okay, time for an eyes open nap.
I'll add more tubes and lumps of clay to slowly build up his eyebrows and cheekbones, before getting to work on the input socket for the aforementioned Drano cocktail. So usually when I sculpt a face, I at least have some sort of underlying anatomy to use as a crutch for where and how to place stuff, but as this is basically just putting face bits on a sphere like a bootleg Mr. Potato Head, I feel like I'm partly stumbling around in the dark, just hoping it'll end up looking at least somewhat like the original character in the end. Then, after adding that sparkly Employee of the Month set of chompers, the head is basically done. No, wait a minute. I know what you're all thinking.
Oh, yeah, look, that idiot is gonna do it again. He is totally going to forget the eyebrows.
Well, first off, those are just malicious rumors, not even remotely based on facts. Second, I did remember. Behold, eyebrows. Last but not least, it wouldn't be a real moon without the signature asteroid craters, which I can pop in there with another round of ball stylus poking. After smoothing it as best as I can off camera without any isopropyl alcohol at hand, it's going into the oven for a good long time. Unfortunately for me, the concept art doesn't have him standing on something nice and simple like a scenic rock or a cool square bit of XPS foam painted gray, but instead it's a whole darn Raptidon. I don't think I've actually sculpted a quadruped creature in clay before, but I'm assuming a skeleton is still an acceptable way to start the process. Staring at what I could Google up of reference images from the first game, I'll start by blocking out the main masses in a neutral-ish stance first, to keep it somewhat symmetrical until he gets chiropracted into the burlesque reclined pose from the concept art. The head starts out as an oblong sphere. This guy's mostly mouth and teeth, so I'll have to make sure I dig out enough room to fit all the pointy bits. Well, I guess these guys aren't technically dinosaurs. There is probably a similar evolutionary lineage going on, leading to the Raptidon becoming a space turkey in the future, judging from this magnificent waddle. This is my first and definitely not third time trying to place the eyes by digging out the little eye socket roofed by a cheeky superciliary arch. I baked another pair of somewhat sphere-adjacent eyeballs to squish into these sockets, and it's now time for a part that is as scary for me as it is for him. First step to atone for this crime is filling these horrifying gaps. Okay, he looks so dumpy being all gums, so I need to see him with teeth to know if we're going in the right direction. I baked a bunch of them off camera using semi-translucent Fimo, which will look cool if I can manage to not cover them completely with paint later. I can then use some tweezers to gingerly squeeze most of them into our lizard friend's gums, and voila, we have a smile that would be impossible not to fall in love with.
You are so handsome.
Now, for all the chomping and chewing of hapless space colonizers he needs to do on a daily basis, we also have to make sure he has ample jaw muscles to do so. Using the by now extremely rusty and dusty anatomy part of my brain, I'll start by blocking out the rest of the body in more detail, starting with thick legs and what I guess is a mix of neck musculature and turkey neck flaps. The Raptidon sports a set of these terrifying mouth flaps of unknown function. I'll cut their base shape out of a flattened sheet of clay and blend it into the corners of his gaping maw. Then add all the detail I could make out from the concept art as best as I can. From there I made his built-in ruffled tuxedo frills using a duo of clay snakes that I blended in and poked at a bunch with a loop tool. Is it weird that we've come this far into the project and still haven't given this guy a name?
C. Fabula Pew, final answer.
Okay, maybe not what I would have picked, but sure, we have to move on. Next up are his toe beans. I'm now realizing part of why I haven't done any quadrupeds. Having to make 2 feet is annoying. 4? That's like worser. To make my life easier and spare you from having to watch the process, I've pre-made a smorgasbord of claws off camera while watching old Samurai Jack episodes.
This is terrible. Really? Yes.
With the petty done, I can finally start adding details to hide my lumpy sculpting behind, starting with skin folds in skin foldy areas. But his skin is still too unrealistically smooth. Using a rubber tip tool and about 3 full episodes of the Adventure Zone, I'm adding random skin wrinkle details all over. His lower arm leg has a section of barnacle-like spikes. It looks like there is some other smaller spiky bits there as well. Luckily, I still have some leftover toenails from before.
That's disgusting.
That I can chop up into random spike detail. Now, so far I've avoided the tail, mostly just to still have somewhere non-sticky to grab this thing when I have to turn my workshop into our kitchen at the end of the day. After quickly blocking in the shape and shaping it with a ball shaper tool, I can add in these tail tip frilly bits. Speaking of spikes, do you know what we need more of? Spikes. These ones are flatter than the other ones, so totally different.
Different is better, right?
Ooh, I almost forgot these flappy bits. I'll make a thin armature for it using this. If I'm super careful, I should be able to insert this without ruining the mouth flap. I flattened a long clay sausage, and after trying to add it to the wire while attached and making the damage to the flap 10 times worse in the process, I finally detached it and finished the job separately before reattaching it and blending it into the flap itself. And the Raptidon sculpt is done. After about half an hour of stabbing my sausage fingers bloody, I finally managed to finagle a tiny skeleton for our lunar-headed friend. I'll use some pliers to steal the pose from Obsidian's concept art, before adding some clay and goop to give the next layer a little something to grab onto. Now, as a dirty artist and former VFX guy, my work uniform has basically always been jeans and a black hoodie, so I'm not really a suit expert. However, I have actually seen one before, so I start by blocking in the main shape and arms and legs, then adding the shoulder pad seams, the collar, and the parts of the vest you'll actually see on top. For the rest of the suit jacket, I'm trying my best to flatten a bit of clay that I can wrap around him before blending it into the arms. I then made shirt cuffs by squishing in a bit of the end of the jacket sleeves. Now, Moon Guy doesn't have an actual neck, but as the gentleman mascot he still needs a spiffy shirt collar.
It's a very nice suit.
This might just be me, but I think sculpting shoes is hard. Even though I don't go outside much, I do see these things on a daily basis, but I still feel like every time I make some, I have to Google what they actually look like.
Never seen one of those before.
Speaking of hard to sculpt, tiny hands. To make my life easier, I'm doing the posing in mitten form, then adding the opposable thumb and digits after. After a quick bake to give myself something to hold on to without smooshing everything, I can do the leg work one more time for the other side. A quick post test on the reptile base, and it's back in the oven yet again. Oh yeah, guess he does have two hands. After using the magic of stop motion to build his cool space gun, I start building this hand in mitten form as well, wrapping it around the grip. I'll then add a thumb for improved gripping, then like on the other side, I'll slice the mitten into fingers, except this time adding a rogue outstretched index finger for proper trigger safety. Then, after effortlessly adding the trigger, I guess safety time is now action time, so I scooch the finger around the trigger. The gun in the image has this fun tube wire thing, which I'm sure totally makes sense and can definitely be weapon technically justified, so I'm adding a couple of drops of liquid clay to attach said clay tube to the side. So the suggestion to put actual cheese in this thing came from my amazing patrons, and while I do love that idea, I must admit going back and watching years worth of other creators like Evan and Caitlin putting food in resin and paying the ultimate price for the audacity of doing so has scared me a bit. Now, sculpting directly in cheese sounds like it would be a huge pain in the crack, and so I'm trying to figure out a way to technically put cheese in resin, but without creating a flesh-eating parasite in the process. To assuage my fear of this part of the project, I started by self-medicating with pizza.
Just slip it down here.
I'll begin by snipping off his metal ponytail. Turns out I never really figured out what to use this thing for after all. I'm attempting a two-part mold for this to make it possible to UV resin both halves separately, so I'm starting by blocking out half of the model using clay. This way, if I get it tight enough, only the top half should be covered in silicone when we pour the first batch. Just in case I haven't though, I'm gluing the bottom of the cup to the pizza platform to make sure any runaway silicone doesn't escape all over our rental furniture and cost us our deposit. I'm using a two-part silicone for the mold, where you mix the blue stuff with the white stuff and stir around a bunch until it becomes just blue stuff once again. After curing overnight, part 1 is ready for demolding. The nice thing about using mass-produced paper cups for mold enclosures is that the resulting mold should fit snugly into another cup of the same type. I also just realized I don't have any mold release to keep part B from just bonding to part A. I've made some DIY release by mixing isopropyl alcohol with dish soap, and once again, I'm making the fool's gamble of putting my trust in the mold gods that it will come apart after curing.
Together we will devour the very core. The next morning.
Now, I can see a line in the mold there, so I'm hopeful that maybe the parts are separable. Oh no. Okay, it luckily seems like maybe just the outer edge is bonded, because as soon as I got my finger in there, it started splitting apart.
Maybe I am a monster.
As expected, the nose broke off in the mold. I'll definitely want to reattach it though, as when my foolhardy resin adventure inevitably goes tits up, I'm gonna need a backup head to actually finish this video. time to test out if my exceptionally dubious resin plan will actually work. I'll squeeze some UV resin into the mold, brush it over part of the surface, then hit it with my tiny UV torch to harden it.
One nap later.
So it kinda-ish works. It's still a bit tacky in places though, so I'll hit it some more with the torch before getting started on the face side of the mold. Here I'm doing the nose first, as I'm not convinced that my tiny UV light for babies will be able to cure too thick of a resin layer. After the initial cure, I'll leave them both outside under God's UV lamp for a proper cure. And it's not as bad as I feared, but it's not good either. The halves kind of line up, but the edges are so ragged I'll need to fuse them with more resin, making a seam that is pretty garbage. But let it not be said that Lars lies in his video titles, and if I said I'm putting cheese in it, I'm putting cheese in it, goddammit. Okay, so this is not great.
Cast it into the fire!
Luckily, I have this. I've airbrushed the lactose-free version of the head in a greenish, whitish, moony color, with some areas like around the eyes in a darker green like on the concept art. I'll give the eyes a quick 14 coats of white, same with the teeth, and the eyebrows, like I have on all my models, are painted in dark gray. Now, Moon Man is in the emo season of his life, which means he has, in addition to a searing hatred for his new stepdad, a penchant for black lipstick. I'm using a dry brushing brush to add a bit of color to his nose, cheekbones, and corners of his mouth, before adding a bit of brown wash to the gap between his teeth rows to make it more pronounced. For the eyes, I'm using a small ball stylus tool to place the iris and pupil combo, just to make sure that he isn't too cross-eyed, then widening it out with a slightly larger ball stylus tool. I'll add a little fake glint by going to an even smaller tool by adding a tiny dot of white paint. The icing on the cake being eyeballs in this case, is a quick layer of UV resin to give them the shiny moist cornea look everyone is after. And the backup head, now promoted to the position of main head, is done. Are you enjoying the video so far? I know I am. Well, if you are, please consider leaving a like and a comment below to let the malevolent robot that controls this website know. That would be super helpful. You can now also join us on Patreon. There you'll get access to behind-the-scenes material, a members-only chat where you can hang out with me and other people way cooler than me, early access to videos, thank you shoutouts during the videos themselves, as well as the ability to vote on future video projects. So head over to patreon.com/keepcrackin', find a tier that works for you, and thank you so much for the support. After a good bake, the body is done and ready for painting. I'm painting straight onto the clay as my Jeff package with primer has yet to arrive, which I'm hoping won't come back to bite me in the old derriere down the line. I'm starting with all the black bits. Oh boy, could it be? So it wasn't the primer, but after 2 failed attempts, my cutting mat has finally arrived. First test drive of the new mat is painting the white bits, as well as undercoating the brightly colored parts like the vest and the gun. And because it's thin white paint on dark clay, to get it properly covered we'll have to coat it all. Then do it again, and again. Now, if you came to this video for professional painting advice, then this is definitely your first time here, so welcome. Like and subscribe. I started by painting the space Pew Pew in Vallejo Sculpey green. I painted the vest in bloody red. That's the actual name, I'm not just doing cool British swear words. The gun is looking a little samey, so I mixed some black into the Sculpey green for a few of the elements. I wanted to do a little bit of edge highlighting to get a little more of a graphical style, starting with some brightened up bloody red for the vest, and slightly lighter versions of the greens for the gun. Now, I think the white parts are looking a little flat and boring. I don't know how you'd highlight pure white, but I seem to remember seeing classic Games Workshop box arts being shaded with blue tones, so I'll mix up a baby blue wash and give it the old college try. I covered all the white bits with the wash and let it dry, before going back over with a thin white glaze to tone the blues back down. Now, it might not be better, but at least it's different.
Different is better, right?
Do you remember a few videos back when I finally bought a super neat little airbrush spray booth? Well, that is now in a storage container about 2,000-ish kilometers from here, which for my American friends is about 5,998 aircraft carriers or about 8 million Mountain Dew bottles. So now all we have is the Jeff booth. I'll start by priming the whole guy in white primer. While it's still drying, I'm making a heroic effort at cleaning off my precious translucent teeth with an IPA soaked Q-tip, work I will immediately undo with the next coat of paint. I mixed up a dark burgundy base coat that I'll first spray onto the part where I didn't want it, then on the bits I did want red. I'll do the same for the beige tannish midriff color, before going back over with a brush to clean up the overspray and mist areas. I also realized I totally forgot to paint the insides of the mouth, so I'm trying my best to avoid the teeth as I hit that with a dark turquoisey type color that I'm hoping will blend okay with the neon blue mouth flap insides later. Speaking of blue flaps, I'll first have to base everything that is going to be blue with white to help the colors pop without needing 300 coats. I'll use the time when that is drying to give the other parts a darker wash to darken the crevices and show some of the concave details.
Including all my major crevices, including in between my toes and in my belly button.
The in-game version of the blue bits are kind of bioluminescent, so I'll start with a darker layer, which as we go along will gradually be built to the brightest value based on where the flap is thickest to indicate a bit of internal glow. The first layer of highlighting is a dry brush pass on the whole thing, using a slightly brighter version of the undercoat to give some volume. I'll then break out what in my humble paint gear collection passes as my fancy brush and start highlighting and hatching the most prominent volumes. I'm making sure to go across the volumes, which also is what I imagine the direction wrinkles and folds would go in to maybe get some free skin texture as well. The spiky and clawy bits all get the same dark brown color. I should have done some more gradient highlighting on these as well, but at this stage, I really just need to finish this project.
I'm tired, boss.
Of course, my beautiful translucent teeth are now covered in so many layers of blue and red paint that cleaning them is beyond my pay grade.
You gotta come down and deal with this. Don't make me do stuff.
So I'll just paint them all in a off-white color, give them a brownish wash to dirty them up a bit, and that'll just have to do.
That's all I have to give.
Last step for our reclining friend is to get some specularity in there, which I can do by adding a layer or two of gloss varnish to all the wet bits like mouth, flap, and eyeballs, and jaboy is done. You know what our base needs? A base. As the rest of the project, combined with us moving every 4 weeks, has already taken way too long, I decided to do a hopefully quick, simple, cracked space dirt surface. After a bit of Google searching, I landed on this vat of Liquitex crackle paste, as the tiny Games Workshop pots of this stuff would absolutely ruin me financially.
Help me, I'm poor.
I have no idea how this stuff works, but supposedly thick equals chunkier cracks. So let's smear this forbidden mayo generously over the whole baseboard and leave it to dry. It's been a couple of days and it has finally dried and it's looking pretty neat. Now, the bits don't seem to all be that well adhered to the wooden base, so in lieu of a spritzer bottle, I'll brush some alcohol over it, then drip watered down CA glue across the whole thing. As soon as the glue cocktail is dry, I covered it all in a brown wash to stain the goop and darken the cracks, before going back over with a lighter beige-ish dry brush to highlight some of the edges. I'm feeling like our guy isn't really reaching that peak milady gentleman status, and of course he isn't. He doesn't have a hat. I'm building the mass of what I'll call the chimney part of the hat, as I refuse to Google what hat parts are called, out of aluminium foil. I don't really know what this mummy wrap bit is for, but it's there, so let's add it. After a quick bake, I can coat the whole thing in the aptly named Mars Black and the wrappy roundy bit in sort of an eggshell cream white, which is fancy talk for beige.
Which is fancy folk words for sand color.
Sorry about that. Not gonna do that again. After it's dry, I'll shade it with a brownish wash, then add some extremely hard to see edge highlights in almost pure white. Remember when I said the body was finished? Well, I looked at it again, and the black parts were very flat looking, so I went back over with a thin brush and did a bit of highlighting with a darkish gray. Okay, now it is actually done.
Pinky swear.
Friends for life.
Now all that is left is to put all the parts together. I glued the monster base to the dirt base, our handsome little guy to the monster base, the hat to the head, then through the magic of translucent wire, glue, and this secret hatch in my new photo booth, I made the head levitate above it all. And we are done. Thank you guys so much for joining me on yet another misguided project adventure. This video was brought to you by the absolute legends that support me on Patreon. Now, everyone who is a member of the Keep is special, but one tier of member is even more specialer than the rest. These are the newest members of the Keep's esteemed royal family Patreon tier. A warm hi there, bud, to my dear friend William Fauché. And a heartfelt how's it brew to Salty Cupcake and Zord Point North. You all are the absolute best, and your help with bankrolling the Keep's many deep-sea related expenses is eternally appreciated. Thanks again for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, comment, and Patreon, and yeah, you know the drill. I'll see you again in the next video.